How many board members are in the boardroom presently? I can't see everyone, so I want to make sure I'm checking quorum calling.
Chair Alessio and Vice Chair Joseph.
Yeah. That's actually all that's the only board members that are here. So you actually see everything.
Copy that. Thank you.
Questions about whether there become more people scrolling in, showing up in person versus Zooming.
Chair Alessio, just to let you know, we do have quorum, but I'm not sure if you want to wait just another minute or two for others to jump on.
Let's go ahead and start. As long as we have a quorum, I'm fine starting. I want to hereby call the meeting of the Napa Valley Transportation Authority Tax Agency. It is Wednesday, July 20th at 1 o'clock. Shall we go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance? Please stand for everybody who's here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. Laura, let's start with a roll call, please.
All right. Leon Garcia.
Here.
Mark Joseph.
Here.
Gary Kraus.
Here.
Liz Alessio.
Here.
Scott Sedgley. Alfredo Pedroza.
Here.
Elia Ramos.
Here.
Jeff Ellsworth.
Here.
Paul Doring. Joe Tagliabashi.
Present.
And Doug Weir.
Yes.
We have 2 confirmed absences, Member Canning and Member Dunbar today. We do have quorum.
Thank you. And I believe Member Sedgley is going to be joining us a little bit late, so we look forward to having him join us. On to the adoption of the agenda. Do any board members have any changes to the agenda? Not seeing any. Is there a motion and a second to adopt the agenda?
So
Please state your name.
Second, Garcia.
Moved by Kraus, second by Garcia. Laura, would you please give roll call?
Leon Garcia.
Here.
Mark Joseph.
Yes.
Gary Kraus.
Yes.
Liz Alessio.
Yes.
Alfredo Pedroza.
Yes.
Elia Ramos.
Yes.
Jeff
I wish
Ellsworth.
they didn't share the screen with that stupid
Yes.
thing on
Joe Tagliabashi.
Yes.
Oh, and John Dunbar's not here. That
I
passes.
should respond yes to that. Sorry.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Very good. On to number 5 of the agenda is public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a comment? Nobody present in person. Anybody on Zoom? Okay, thank you. Number 7 on our agenda is director's update. Are there any updates from our executive director for the tax authority?
Do you want to do the chairpersons and board members update first?
Yes, I jumped over our chairpersons and board members update. Thank you, Kate. Are there any updates by our board members? And not seeing any. Laura, do you see any? I don't see everybody. So
No hands raised. I can see everyone here.
okay, very good. Okay, now we're on to number 7.
Great.
To the
Thank you.
director.
Good afternoon. I'm Kate Miller. I'm the executive director of the NVTA. I first wanted to introduce our newest employee, Ozair Khan. just wave. And Ozair has filled the principal engineering position. Ozair received his Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering from the University of Waterloo in Ontario. Ozair most recently worked at Caltrans as a project engineer and managed projects in various Bay Area counties, including some projects in Napa. Ozair has also worked for the government of Alberta, as well as private engineering firms in Alberta and Ontario. We are both thrilled and relieved that Ozair has joined the agency after our ongoing and exhaustive search for qualified civil engineers. So welcome, Ozair. We're really happy to have you here.
Thank you. Welcome.
Former Caltrans director for District 4, Tony Tavares, has been appointed as the new Caltrans director overall for the whole agency. He replaces Tokes Omishakin, who was appointed to Cal State Transportation Agency executive director by Governor Newsom in February of this year. It's all the buzz. The new shuttle in Yountville will be officially christened the Bee at the ribbon cutting on September 20th at 1:30 p.m. in Yountville. It has given us much inspiration for marketing ideas. Bottle Rock ridership figures are in roughly the same as last fall when Bottle Rock was held in September. The Bottle Rock bump is a couple hundred trips below the numbers, though still only about 62% of the Bottle Rock trips recorded in 2019 prior to the pandemic. So we're inching up there, but it's slow going. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Kate. Thanks for the report. Are there any questions for the executive director on her report? Okay, not seeing any. Moving on to number 8, consent agenda items. Do any board members wish to pull any of the items from our consent agenda? I'm not seeing any.
Joseph, I'll move that we adopt the consent.
Okay, Member Joseph has made a motion to move the agenda forward. Do we have a second?
Second, Paul Loring.
I think it was going to give this one to Doring, though maybe Kraus actually beat him out of it. Let's give this one to Doring a second. Roll call, please.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Gary Kraus,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Alfredo Pedroza,
Yes.
thank you, Belia Ramos,
Yes.
Jeff Ellsworth,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
and Joe Tagliabashi.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Very good. We're on to our regular agenda items. We have agenda item 9.1, Amendment 1 to the Master Funding Agreement Loan Policy. We have a staff report on this. And is it Victoria Ortiz? Thank you. We'll present this item. Just so everybody knows, staff will be seeking approval.
Hello, my name is Victoria Ortiz and I'm presenting item 9.1, amendment number 1 to the master funding agreement for Measure T loan policy. As previously stated, this is an action item. Following the start of Measure T, jurisdictions have inquired on whether Measure T revenues could be used to repay private loans used to fund Measure T projects upfront. Under Section 8 of the ordinance, jurisdictions are allowed to loan other jurisdictions Measure T funds through cooperative funding agreements. However, a formal procedure does not currently exist under Measure T or the Master Funding Agreement. After consulting with the local bank and based on legal counsel review, NVTA staff is proposing to amend the Master Funding Agreement to include a loan policy. This loan policy includes the following. First, Measure T funds can be used to repay jurisdictional and private loans on eligible Measure T projects. Second, Measure T funds cannot be used to guarantee a loan or as collateral for loan acquisition. Lastly, for a project to be eligible, it must be included in the adopted 5-year project list, and the jurisdiction must demonstrate that the annual loan repayment plus other Measure T project expenses will not exceed the estimated annual Measure T revenue for any given year. To show this, jurisdictions must fill out the cash flow form shown in Sheet 2 of Attachment 2 Exhibit B. 5-year project list. The staff's proposed amendment can be found as attachment 1 to this report. This item has been reviewed and recommended for approval by the Technical Advisory Commission and the Independent Tax Oversight Committee. This is an action item, and NVTA staff recommends that the Napa Valley Transportation Authority Tax Agency Board of Directors approve amendment number 1 as presented. Please let me know if you have any questions regarding the proposed amendment.
Thank you, Victoria, for that report. Are there any questions from board members? Not seeing any. Okay, are there any members of the public who wish to make a comment? And I don't think we have any there either. Laura, did NVTA receive any written public comments on this item?
We did not.
Okay, then is there a motion and a second to approve?
So moved.
Kraus, motion to move?
Second,
We have a
Garcia.
second? Second Garcia. Roll call, please.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Gary Kraus,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Alfredo Pedroza,
Yes.
Belia Ramos,
Yes.
Jeff Ellsworth,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
and Joe Tagliabashi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Item 10 is future agenda items. Do we have any future agenda items requested by the board? Not seeing any. Finally, at 11 is the, oh, I'm sorry.
Actually, I'll
We do,
I'll
on my
raise a
left.
question. I don't know if it's a future agenda item, but does it make sense in some point in time to get kind of an update on our thoughts about modifying Measure T and all of that, or is that still far enough off in the future?
Well, it's, we have it sort of calendared for starting to work on it the beginning of 2023, with the idea that we would, if the board approves it and it's approved by the jurisdictions, put it on the ballot in the fall of 2024. So yeah, so sometime probably next spring, we'll start working on it.
Okay, fair enough.
Good question. Thank you, Member Joseph. If there are no other questions or recommendations for future agenda items, not seeing any. Let's go ahead and adjourn this meeting. And approval of the next regular meeting date is September 21st, 2022. And we're ending this meeting at 1:11. Okay, I'll let your other packet. Here we go. I hereby call to order the meeting of the Napa Valley Transportation Authority. It is still Wednesday, July 20th, and it's now 1:11. Laura, can we bypass the roll call?
Yes, roll call was confirmed at the preceding NVTA-TA meeting with 3 absences.
Thank you very much. On to item number 3.
Chair, I'm
adoption-
sorry, if I may interject, this is Director Ellsworth. Paul Doring came on to the meeting. I wasn't sure if he was checked in the roll call.
Thank you, Member Ellsworth. I did confirm his attendance when he logged on.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for checking, Member Ellsworth. Moving on to item 3, adoption of the agenda. Do any board members have any changes to the agenda? Not seeing any. Is there a motion and a second to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Kraus.
Joseph.
Okay, we'll get
Second, Joseph.
Kraus moved this forward and Joseph second. Laura, roll call, please.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Gary Kraus,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Alfredo Pedroza,
Yes.
Belia Ramos,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Jeff Ellsworth,
Yes.
and Joe Tagliabashi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. On number 4 is public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to make a comment? I see a hand raised by Justin. Justin, if you'd like to make a comment?
Thank you, Liz. And good afternoon, our board members. I was gonna say that I was just shout out for all we do hard work back in 2020, 2021, and 2022. I want to thank Becca for me get the bus weekday back together, and it's so hard. And I hope August 14th we will see more bus starting up. Thank you all.
Thank you, Justin. It's always nice to hear some thoughtful words of gratitude. We appreciate that. Is there any other public comment? Not seeing any? Okay. On to number 5, chairpersons, board members, MTC commissioners, and ABAG government updates. Are there any updates from board members on any of these? Alfredo, do we have an update on MTC or?
I'll give a quick update, Chair Alessio. We've continued to work on the roundabouts that we've been proposing at Valley. And I just want to give a special shout out to Opus One and Apple Wine Company for providing us a right of entry form, which is the next step to continue to provide some meaningful traffic and safety solutions on those corners. So I think maybe Executive Director Miller can provide more information, but again, just thank you to those, and also thank you to Kate and Danielle for really shepherding these projects locally, and to MTC for continuing to be supportive of those efforts. And again, just the fact that MTC has been providing some of the funding to get these projects going, I really appreciate the leadership at MTC as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Pedrosa, and thank you for all that coordination. I know a lot of people are very excited about those roundabouts, being provided up Valley. So thank you for that. With our ABAG representatives, Member Garcia, Member Ramos, is there anything that you want to give us an update on?
I'll just say briefly, we have a meeting tomorrow evening, and one of the big considerations for us is the WICS bill AB 2011 that we will be considering tomorrow evening regarding housing. I think that's about it. We have an adopted budget. We're good.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Well, if there are no other board member updates, we can move on to number 6, and that's the executive director update.
Well, since I inadvertently did it in the wrong meeting, I think we could dispense of it until next.
We'll just say ditto. Okay, very good. Then moving on to item 7, which is the consent agenda items. Do any board members wish to pull any of the items from the consent agenda?
7.4, please.
I'm sorry, Member Doring, which item?
7.4, just briefly.
7.4. Okay. Any other items? Okay, if not, is there a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda out with the exception of 7.4?
So moved.
Joseph.
Paul Doring.
Okay, so Joseph moved him and Doring second. Roll call, please.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Gary Kraus,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Alfredo Pedrosa,
Yes.
Belia Ramos,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Jeff Ellsworth,
Yes.
and Joe Tagliabashi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. So going back to 7.4 on the consent agenda, the revised policies, practices, and procedures manual, personnel. Can Member Doring, do you want to share what your questions might be or comments?
Thank you, Chair. I understand the goal here, but I just I want to make sure that we are sensitive to the underlying issue of the meaning of Juneteenth, and maybe have the executive director kind of talk about that. I think we need to be very extra sensitive to certain holidays, and they're not holidays just for the sake of taking a day off. I understand the pragmatic approach here, but I just want to make sure that we do not diminish or inadvertently somehow overlook the significance of this day. It is extremely significant to African Americans and should be significant to all Americans. So maybe just a comment that, maybe we can do something in lieu of that, so it's just not sort of abandoned here in this organization. Maybe, I'm sure you've thought about that, but that was a concern that I have.
We're having some microphones. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you, Member Doring. Our executive director is trying to get her microphone to. One moment.
I think that's going to work. I'm not sure what's going on with it. Okay. So yeah, we acknowledge your concern, Director Doring. One of the challenges that all public transit systems have is that we need to operate on what are frequently not necessarily federally acknowledged or acknowledged by the private sector because we operate a transit system during those most holidays. So the way we have it structured is we have a personal leave time so that people are here during holidays when we're operating the transit system. And, that said, there are a number of holidays such as Martin Luther King Day, Cesar Chavez Day, that we as staff members and the agency acknowledge as very important holidays, but they are frequently work days for many people in the private sector. So that's the reason why we've structured it this way. And I hope that responds to your question, but if not, I'm happy to answer or provide you any additional information.
Member Doring, does that help clarify?
No, I fully understand the pragmatism of the approach. I'm just thinking maybe we can give it some thought to think about ways that we can affirm that day for folks and the other days that you mentioned, frankly, so that they don't become just days off for folks, that there's some more meaning there. We can work on that, but I know that Director Ellsworth may have something to say, but I understand the predicament. I'm just wanting to make sure that we're very sensitive to these concerns for maybe not current employees, but future employees who may want to take that day off or do something special. Maybe we'll keep that top of mind moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Doring. Member Ellsworth.
Yes, thank you. And I'm also understanding of the pragmatic approach here and what we're trying to do, but I want to support the concept of recognition of why this holiday and others exist. And what I'm wondering, I just think some type of memorialization, whether it's a one-page or one paragraph document that's part of when these days roll around. And the idea that it's a transportation agency that's serving its mission every single day is really important, I think, to acknowledge. That's the reason for continuing the work through the holiday. But I do think some type of language that could be very brief, but would offer the respect for why the holidays exist may be of value. So as they come up each time, we recognize the holiday while also the pragmatic aspect. So I would just put out, and I'm certainly supportive of this moving forward today, but considering some language as we move forward that might be attached, could be fairly brief, but I do think if we don't memorialize things, often we lose them. So I just want to support Director Doring in bringing this forward. Thank you.
I'll move approval of the agenda item.
Second, Garcia.
Chair, may I call roll? Thank you. Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph. I think we're having audio troubles in the boardroom. Gary Kraus,
Yes.
Liz Alessio. Can't hear them. Okay. Alfredo Pedroza,
Yes.
Belia Ramos,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Jeff Ellsworth,
Yes.
and Joe Tagliabachi.
Yes.
Motion passes. Looks like they're getting the remote microphone set up so that we can hear our chair.
Testing. Hello? Oh, okay. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Very good. We're not doing karaoke here. I promise you. We are, this boardroom is prone for interesting technical hurdles. And now today it's the microphones. So I might be passing this microphone back and forth, but in terms of 7.4, we did have, is it working now?
Test, yeah.
Okay, we're back. So 7.4 has been approved, so we can move on to the regular agenda items. Thank you for your patience. 8.1 staff is seeking approval. Rebecca Schenk will present this item. And when the report is finished, we'll be asking if there's any questions. So Rebecca, do you want to present 8.1 for us? You're not on the microphone, unfortunately. Just one moment, everybody.
Okay, I think I'm good now.
Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman Alessio, members of the board. My name is Rebecca Schenk, and I'm the program manager for public transit here at NVTA, and I'm presenting on item 8.1, which is a motion to introduce ordinance 2022-01 of the Napa Valley Transportation Authority, regulating parking, camping, and smoking at transit facilities and parking areas by title only, and waive reading of the full ordinance. And 2, approve the designation for the executive director to prepare a summary of ordinance 2022-01 to be published in the newspaper in Napa County. So the NVTA staff today is recommending that the NVTA board conduct a first reading and notice of its intent to adopt ordinance 2022-01, which is a revision to NVTA's existing ordinance 2013-01. The ordinance in 2013 was related strictly to parking and smoking, and this ordinance would add camping and make revisions to the definition of parking and its enforcement. Indeed, 13.01 is the only ordinance that NVTA board has passed at any point in time. So our alternatives, besides the staff recommendation, is the NVTA board could decide to delay revisions to the ordinance or to not revise the ordinance. Not updating the ordinance would affect the city of Napa's ability to enforce the current ordinance because of changing in parking enforcement and it no longer being a function of the police department. And it would also limit the city of Napa's ability to do camping enforcement at NVTA's facilities. So what NVTA goal is this meeting? We think it would improve the system's safety in order to support all modes and serve all users. So NVTA has continued to receive complaints from riders and neighbors concerned about their safety due to the presence of camping and trailers, specifically at the Redwood Park and Ride. Updating this ordinance would enable the city of Napa to assist NVTA in the enforcement of parking, camping, and personal property storage at Redwood Park and Ride, as well as the new Amola Park and Ride and bus shelters throughout the city of Napa. So some background on this ordinance and what had happened in 2013. So originally NVTA had adopted this ordinance in 2013 related to parking and smoking after the initial bottle rock was held just across the street. It kind of showed that we needed a way to preserve parking spaces for NVTA employees as well as facility patrons. So now in 2022, the reason for updating the ordinance is to include changes in the City of Napa parking enforcement, as well as kind of to address growing challenges with encampments and personal property disposal and storage at NVTA's facilities. So the ordinance was drafted by NVTA legal counsel to be consistent with the City of Napa's current enforcement ordinance and reviewed by City of Napa legal counsel. And the procedures are consistent with recent California and federal laws regarding camping and unhoused populations. A clean version of the revised ordinance is included as attachment 1, and then a redlined version of ordinance 2013-01 is included as attachment 2. So what's changed basically between 2013 and 2022? So if you look through the red line, the first thing that jumps out is at that point we were on the Napa County Transportation and Planning Agency. So we've updated that from NVTA to NVTA. And then we've added definitions specifically for camping, park and ride lots, and storage. And then we've defined specifically the types of parking that are permitted at our park and ride lots. And then we defined unlawful camping and storage consistent with the City of Napa ordinances. So to recap, today is the introduction of the ordinance and the approval of a summary to be created and published in the Napa Valley Register. And then the next steps would be for staff to schedule a reading and adoption of an ordinance 2022-01 for our September board meeting, which would be the final adoption and final action on the ordinance. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions from our board members? No questions? Okay. Any questions or comments from the public? Oh, I see Member Doring has a question.
Just maybe directed to our council, whoever drafted it, but I'm focusing in on the definitions, 2.2C. In particular, the notion that sleep can be considered camping. My initial impression there is that that is overbroad. In other words, if I was to drive in to park there for a few minutes right before a board meeting and I happen to doze off for 3 or 4 minutes, I guess I would be considered a camper. And I'm not sure if it was intended to really be that broad in terms of the prohibition. And I just would ask that we give some thought to that maybe. I mean, it's not the biggest thing in the world, but it does seem a little problematic that it would cover situations that it is not intended to cover. So that's my only comment. Thank you.
Sure. And I think, I don't know if our Director Kate Miller, I think may have a comment on that. And then Deanne Gillick had helped draft this ordinance in initial form, and she might have some comments as well.
Yeah. So thank you for that question, Director Doring. The properties are all owned by Caltrans, and Caltrans requires that the use of those properties be restricted to public purposes and the public good. So it is intended to prohibit camping or even parking when the individual is not using our facilities for what they were intended to be used for.
Thank
you. That didn't really get to my question, but I understand the purpose of camping being prohibited. I'm just thinking, is sleeping for 10 minutes considered camping? I think it's more directed. Thank you.
Yeah. And Director Doring, this is Deanne Gillick. The specific definitions related to the camping mirrored the City of Napa's camping ordinance, as the cities will be doing the enforcement. And, you know, it's our understanding, the cities and ours, that the city's existing ordinance provides the authority for the City of Napa to enforce camping in our public places. But the purpose of this ordinance is to bolster it and to make it more specific. If there's any, you know, vagueness arguments that our public spots aren't included in the City of Napa's. But I think your comment regarding the city's definition of camping, you know, I'm happy to pass that along to the city because they're the ones that are implementing and enforcing, you know, their language and ultimately ours as well. And it might be a good drafting comment for them to consider in their practical application.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Member Doring. Are there any other questions by our board members? No, none by our board members. Do we have any comments from the public? And I see Justin's hand is raised.
So I was a angel of you guys because I was at the transportation and I saw some cars pulling up in the driveway. And Mr. Man, you please move your car to out the parking lot. We can't have no car or van in there, only the bus. So I did that for you guys.
Oh, yes, Justin, I think what you're referring to is right. Sometimes vehicles will pull into the busways here at the Saskell Gateway Transit Center, and that's not a good situation. And we'll continue to make sure that they don't enter, or at least if they do enter, ask them to leave quickly.
Thank you, Justin, for your comment. There are no other comments from the public. Do we have a motion and a second to approve this item?
So move Garcia. Move to approve.
Thank you.
Second,
Do we have a
Kraus.
second? Second, Kraus. Roll call, please.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Member Joseph is saying yes.
thank you. Gary Kraus,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Alfredo Pedroza,
Yes.
Belia Ramos,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
No.
Jeff Ellsworth,
Yes.
Joe Tagliabashi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. On to item 8.2. This is staff is seeking approval. Alberto Esqueda will present this item.
Good afternoon, board members. Alberto Esqueda, Senior Planner, presenting item 8.2, One Bay Area Grant Cycle 3 project list. The One Bay Area Grant Program, or OBAG 3, establishes the policy and programming framework for investing federal STP funds, Surface Transportation Program, as well as CMAG, the Congestion Mitigation and Air Quality Improvement Program, among other federal funds in the Bay Area. The OBAG program focuses transportation investments in priority development areas and in jurisdictions producing and planning housing through the regional housing needs allocation process. After the success of the initial 2 cycles of OBAG 1 and 2, the MTC adopted an OBAG policy 3. This is the 3rd cycle, and MTC released the funding targets for each county back in January. Funding for the Napa County, or for the entire Napa County, came at $6.143 million. NVTA then created a NOBAG 3 evaluation process and then the board opened the call for projects at your May 18th meeting. Following that meeting, we received 4 applications by the June 17th deadline, totaling $7.2 million. That's roughly $1,063,000 over the available funds. The projects are all listed on table 1. We received a project from the City of American Canyon, the Green Island Class 1 road, or Green Island Road Class 1 project at $1 million. The City of Napa submitted a project for its 5-way intersection for $2 million. The City of St. Helena submitted a project for their pedestrian improvement project on Main Street for $1.2 million. And NVTA submitted a project for the SR 29 American Canyon operation and multimodal improvements for $3 million. Because 3 of these 4 projects had previously been submitted and committed during the OBAG 2 program, due to funding swaps related to the Vine Trail, staff is recommending that the board approve the first three previously submitted OBAG 2 projects and reduce NVTA's SR 29 American Canyon operational and multimodal improvement to 1.9 million to fit the constraint of the 6.143 million funds available. We will convey to MTC that this project needs $3 million to move along and complete the environmental document. However, at this point, it'll be their prerogative. If the board does approve this funding plan, we will submit the projects by MTC's deadline of September 30th. And projects will be able to start using funds beginning February or March of 2023. So with that, I'll open up to questions.
Thank you, Alberto. Do we have any questions from our members, from our board members?
Yes, I have a question. First of all, I'd like to thank staff for putting together the EIR proposal. And I just need some clarification. Identifying that we needed 3 million, but there's only 2 million. Does that mean if MTC found a few extra bucks, they could throw it our way? Is that the idea?
Well, one pot of funds is the $1 million that Caltrans is still holding. So we would probably seek that. We are also requesting that they consider funding this out of their OBAG funds to make the delta, and it would be guaranteed by Regional Measure 3 funds, should those flow. So that's what we're asking for.
Great. Well, thank you, especially for getting this first step or this next step handled and moving the project along. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Joseph. Member Ellsworth, you have your hand up?
Yes, thank you. I appreciate it too, as well, all the work from staff. And I know that, you know, how we balance this funding has been a challenge to make sure all the projects are moving forward. I have a concern here in terms of timing in St. Helena with our sidewalk project. We have a safety issue. This is a project that we really need to get moving on. And I know that the way this was structured, the end date has us still on time here with the funding. But I'm looking at the October 23 as when funding might be available. And I really think we need to start moving on this project by the beginning of 23 if we can. So I just wanted to kind of make a marker to this conversation. I realize that this is a process that may not have flexibility in terms of that particular OBEG funding coming up earlier than October 23. But is there a way that we can consider some other funding to get us started earlier that then our OBEG funding coming in October 23 could be used to reimburse or something like that? I'm just really concerned about, frankly, a safety issue that is ongoing. So I wanted to put those comments in there and see if there's any discussion on that or any opportunity to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you for your question, Director Ellsworth. The fund, these OBAG funds are tied to the federal fiscal year, so they will first be available October 1st. However, I believe this project does have other funds from the city, from its general fund, which could potentially be used to fund that gap between now and October 1st when the funds are going to be available. So I think that's a possibility to kind of calm your concern.
Does that answer your question, Member Ellsworth?
I see Director Doring with his hand up, and I'll let him go first here, and then maybe I'll circle back.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the comments. I'm just, I guess I need clarification on the couple of dates here on the Table 3 timeline. You have an October 1st, 2022 line item, and then an October 1st, 2023 line item. I'm a little confused as when the funds, assuming they are approved, get released to St. Helena, roughly. You may have said January of 2023, but I'm not sure I got that exactly right. Alberto?
Yeah, so Director Doring, the funds are available at the beginning of the federal 2023 fiscal year, which starts October 1st of 2022.
Thank you.
Okay, does that answer, do we have any other, member Ellsworth, did you have something else you wanted to ask or add?
Yes, thank you for the clarification. That was my error in reading, but getting that because we had a couple different dates there. So I appreciate the clarification because that lets us know that we can potentially move forward, as soon as possible. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions by our members? Not seeing any. Do we have any public comment on this item? Did we receive any public comment through our email, Laura?
We did not.
Very good. Do we have a motion and a second? Oh,
Before we do, I do have one question. I know a lot of times with grants, you can't begin expending funds until you've gotten permission and so forth. So looking at this situation, if St. Helena found the funds and spent that money, is there any problem if they spent everything by October and then essentially got reimbursed from OBEG, after they've spent everything? Is that a problem?
Yes, there's a process that MTC has to follow in order for these funds to be available, and there's a programming process, which means that the commission, I think, is going to be programming them in September, and then we'll put them in the Transportation Improvement Program, which officially means that they've been programmed. You cannot obligate federal funds without that occurring first, so they would have to wait until then. Our understanding, though, is that the project isn't ready to move, and so the timing on this actually works for them. So I think there shouldn't be too much of a concern, but certainly if there is, we will work with staff to sort it out.
Okay, thanks.
thank you for that additional question. Member Ellsworth, your hand is still up. Is that because you have another question?
Yeah, I just want to
Or comment?
clarify for Director Joseph, and I do appreciate his question and looking for solutions here. And really, I had misunderstood the date. So that looking that October 22, that keeps us on our timeline. So I think we're in a good spot here. So I really appreciate it.
Very good. Thank you. With no other member questions or comments and public commentary open and closed, do we have somebody who'd like to make a motion and a second to approve this item?
Joseph, I'll make that motion.
Doring,
Joseph
second.
makes the motion. Doring seconds. Roll call, please, Laura.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Gary Kraus,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Alfredo Pedroza, Belia Ramos,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Jeff Ellsworth,
Yes.
and Joe Tagliabashi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Moving on to item 8.3, which is the amendment number 1 to construction agreement number 21 through 19 with OC Jones and Sons, Inc. for construction of the Mola Park and Ride project. Alberto, you're going to be presenting this item again?
Yes, good afternoon again. It's me. I won't repeat the mouthful of a title, but yes, I'm presenting item 8.3, which is amendment to the construction agreement with OC Jones. Today, I'm requesting that the board authorize the executive director or its designee to execute and make minor modifications to the construction agreement number 2119 with OC Jones for additional funds not to exceed $55,000 to complete the construction of the Amola Park and Ride project. The board authorized $2.5 million in August 2021 for the improvements of the park and ride. This was also a bit lower, about $500,000 in the engineer's estimate at the point of the award. We held groundbreaking back in September 21st. I think some of you were there in attendance. We began working on the actual construction of the park and ride in January of this year. And from then we had a few work orders or a list of work orders listed in your board packet. I can briefly go over them. I know you will probably have questions. So the number one, it was a $50,000 change order for public safety, included message boards and barricades for pedestrians and bicycles. Number 3, we had another large change order for a French drain. There was a lot of rain coming down from the abutment from the bridge, and we had to put in the French drain to get rid of the water. We had some electrical modifications on number 4, and then just number 5, we had a bid overrun based on the design. Number 6, we had installation of conduits and charge foundations or charge vehicle foundations, electric vehicle charging foundations. And number 7, we had an irrigation bore. So the irrigation changed, the source of the irrigation at the park and ride changed because we didn't have any initial plans on the site. So we actually had to go across Imola and do a bore to get water from the other side of the street. Number 8, we had some more dig outs due to poor soil. Number 9, we had an bid overrun for pavement. Again, number 10 is related to the irrigations, and number 11, we had some lane striping changes to include green lanes and wider bike lane through the intersection. The change order total came to $377,000, exceeding the contingency for about $3,400. That being said, we do have lump sum and force accounts within each of those change orders. So that means that a lot of the change order force accounts are not exhausted. So we will be receiving a credit for some of those amounts. We anticipate that we have around $25,000 coming back to us. So doing a quick math of negative contingency of $3,400 and an anticipated credit of $25,000, we have a remaining balance of around $21,000. So today I'm asking the board to authorize the executive director to again provide additional funding for the augmentation of the budget. This is primarily related to anticipated safety improvements as the project nears completion and punch list items are being completed. We anticipate that pedestrian safety enhancements at the bus stops will be required. The project team is proposing protective bollards, which are significantly lower priced. However, Caltrans may request a more expensive safety feature such as guardrails. These safety measures were not included in the initial design because the project design team anticipated that cars would be traveling at low speeds on the on-ramp and off-ramp, and the bus stops or shelters would be protected by the curb. However, we are requesting this amount as a proactive measure in case Caltrans does request those guardrails. And since the board is dark in in August, we would have to wait until the end of September. So pushing the completion date of the project into the fall. And again, it's just a preemptive measure. We don't know if they'll request them, but we just want to be ready.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions by members? We have member Joseph,
Yes,
Vice Chair Joseph.
just to try to clarify, so we need 55,000 to finish up this, or not so much finish, but in anticipation of safety requirements. And then the other 21,000, we're just assuming will be the miscellaneous punch list item. So
Correct.
that's what we're really asking to do today.
Right, the $21,000, there's some pedestrian railings that we need to install. There's, we need to upgrade a irrigation controller to solar from electric so that, well, because it's not close to an electrical source and such things. So yeah, we do anticipate those 21,000 will be consumed by the miscellaneous punch items.
And it includes a contingency.
Oh, okay. All right. When it's all said and done, will we get kind of a final accounting or?
You will. That will be part of the project closeout.
Yep, perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Member Vice Chair Joseph. Do we have any other member questions? And I only see part of our panel here, so I don't see any. We don't. Okay, very good. Do we have any public comments?
We do not.
Thank you. Any written comments through email, Laura, that came through on this item?
No.
Very good. Then do we have a motion and a second to approve?
So moved, Kraus.
Okay,
Second,
moved by
Ellsworth.
Kraus and second by Ellsworth. Roll call, please, Laura.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Gary Kraus,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Alfredo Pedroza,
Yes.
Belia Ramos,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Jeff Ellsworth,
Yes.
and Joe Tagliabashi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. Moving on to 8.4. This is another item for the Imola Park and Ride project electrification. And Alberto, you are up once again. And this is an action item.
Yes, it is. Thank you. Correct. This is item 8.4 for the Imola electrification. I'm requesting that the board authorize the executive director to enter into an agreement with an electrical contractor and PG&E for the modifications necessary in an amount not to exceed $192,965 with 59 cents to make electrical upgrades and bring adequate power to the site and purchase 6 electric vehicle charging stations. So as the construction of the Imola Park and Ride ramped up, an effort to install EV charging stations morphed into a much larger effort, which is why it's now been separated into a standalone project so that it doesn't preclude the closing and completion of the improvements at the Park and Ride. In the previous board item, you saw that we've installed conduit for these 6 electric vehicle charging stations, but we plan to install 40 in the future. However, there is no current power running in the site or along the site that will power these charging stations. The goal of the item is to bring power to the Park and Ride and to have the capacity to install all 40 vehicle chargers and have functioning charging stations at the Park and Ride. We've engaged with PG&E to determine the power capacity of the electrical infrastructure surrounding the Park and Ride, and they've identified 2 poles, one on the north side of the Park and Ride on Imola and one on the south side of the Park and Ride, right across from the CHP station. We've decided to further analyze the viability of the southern power pole. There's less disruption to traffic if we do proceed with these upgrades, as well as a larger space for the equipment that needs to be installed. Regarding the cost estimates, PG&E provided an estimate to upgrade the transformer at the southern pole and underground the power and all the way up to the distribution panel. Kimberly Horn provided a cost for the purchase and installation of the board and of the panel board. And the electric vehicle charging station purchase cost was gathered from a previous NVTA contract we did send out an errata memo this morning, correcting that amount, which was previously stated at $66,000. Again, from previous contracts with ChargePoint and NVTA. After 6 weeks of working with representatives of ChargePoint, we did receive a different quote on Monday, which was $22,000 over what we had or what I had initially presented in your memo. That brought the total amount to $192,000. So the reason, I do want to address the reason we don't have a contractor. I know it's not always the case that we do this, but PG&E will provide the specs for the distribution board once their engineering design is complete. And then ChargePoint changed their business model. Previously, what I was planning to do was to go and purchase the electric vehicle charging stations directly from ChargePoint and then go out to bid, thereby avoiding markup from any contractor. However, ChargePoint did change the business model, like I said, and they were no longer selling to the owner or NVTA. So they go to certified distributors. Which means we have to find an installer and have them purchase the charging stations and then install them. My intention is to have the same contractor who installs the electric vehicle charging stations and to install the distribution board. However, since we don't know the type of distribution board that we will need until we have PG&E specifications, this takes us to the first point, and we can't pay for the PG&E specifications without this item. So the reason NVTA staff is requesting for this authorization in advance is due to timing, since again, the board is dark in August, and NVTA already has a place in line in PG&E's queue. Since NVTA has been discussing with PG&E, and we do not want to delay the project any longer and lose our place in the queue with PG&E. We have also secured a quote unquote price protection with ChargePoint until the end of this month. They're increasing their prices by 18%. So if we do not move forward and enter into a contract, we will also be paying an additional 18%, which is, I've calculated, will be around $15,000. So with that, I open it up to questions.
And you have some funds from the Air District, correct? $20,000 from the Air District for this?
We have $20,000 from the Air District. Those funds are for the purchase and installation of electric vehicle charging stations. Those funds need to be used by the end of the year, which I anticipate we will be able to utilize them and fully commit the funds.
And this is for the initial 6 EV stations.
Correct.
With the plans in future for up to 34 EV stations, correct?
So this is paying for the 6, and it's also bringing the power to electrify the future remaining 34.
Thank you very much. Do we have any board member questions? Don't see Vice Chair with his hand up over here. Any on Zoom? Any board members? Do we have any public comment? No public comment. Do we have a motion to approve in a second?
Move to approve, Garcia.
Garcia, motion to approve.
Second, Kraus.
Second by Kraus. A roll call, please, Laura.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Gary Kraus,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Belia Ramos,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Jeff Ellsworth,
Yes.
and Joe Tagliabashi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Moving on to 8.5, which is a regional institutional pass pilot program. Executive Director Kate Miller is going to present this item.
Great. Thank you so much. This is a really exciting milestone in the Metropolitan Transportation Commission and transit in the Bay Area to make a more consolidated and connected system across the 27 systems that provide service to members of the public. MTC has been working with the Fare Integration Task Force, which I sit on, and Tony Onorata sits on the technical task force as part of the effort to ensure that the fares are consistent among systems, as well as to ensure equity for those members of the public who are traveling long distance on transit in the Bay Area. And this pilot program will get a better understanding of exactly how travelers will use an integrated system, and they're providing subsidies, free subsidies for a number of schools, including San Francisco State University, San Jose State University, the University of California at Berkeley, and Santa Rosa Junior College, in addition to a couple of housing developments that already have fare subsidy structures. MTC is not going to move forward with this without complete support from all public transit systems in the region. And I am happy to recommend that the board provide their approval of our participation in that program. It is not going to mean a whole lot, because what it will mean is that those people who are in those programs could travel to our system. So we'll be interesting to see if they do. Also, MTC is providing a small subsidy or significant subsidies for the large systems, and then a small subsidy for us. So, and with that, I would ask if Commissioner and Director Pedrosa wants to make any comments about this effort.
Thank you. Director Member Pedrosa? Okay.
Okay, well, he's just been very instrumental working on the Blue Ribbon Task Force. So he knows a lot about the topic, and obviously has approved many milestones that the Metropolitan Transportation Commission staff has presented to the commission.
Thank you. We recognize Commissioner, President of MTC Board, correct?
That's he's the
Yes.
chair.
He's the chair.
Mhm.
So we thank Member Pedrosa for all his work here locally and Bay Area wide. He's not able to respond right now. He's traveling as he's trying to multitask here and not in a good area to be able to connect and respond. I do see that we have Member Garcia with his hand up.
Yes. Wow. What an improvement this would be. I can't imagine what it's like. 27 different agencies. Everybody has their own pass card, I would guess. You want to move from point A to point B any distance. It's just good to have one system that addresses all the needs. I think that's a really good idea. Good work.
I agree, Member Garcia. It's very exciting. Do we have any other member comments or questions? Not seeing any. Do we have any public comment? And we don't, none there. Do we have any emails come in for this item, Laura?
We did not.
Okay, very good. Do we have a motion and a second to approve?
Move to approve. Garcia.
Garcia, motion to approve.
I'll second. Joseph?
Joseph, second. Roll call, please, Laura.
Leon Garcia,
Yes.
Mark Joseph,
Yes.
Gary Kraus,
Yes.
Liz Alessio,
Yes.
Alfredo Pedrosa,
Yes.
Belia Ramos,
Yes.
Paul Doring,
Yes.
Jeff Ellsworth,
Yes.
and Joe Tagliabashi.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Excellent. Moving on to 8.6, which is the last item for our general agenda. This is the federal and state legislative update by our executive director.
Thank you very much. On federal update, the House Appropriations Committee has marked up the Transportation, Housing, and Urban Development Bill, otherwise known as the THUD bill, for the fiscal year 2023. It includes $105 billion for Department of Transportation funding. Of that, there's $775 million for the Rebuilding American Infrastructure and Sustainability and Equity Grant, otherwise known as RAISE. These are discretionary funds that NVTA has applied for in the past, including more recently for the Napa Valley Forward intersection improvement project on State Route 29. There's also $17.5 billion for FTA, including $13.6 billion for transit formula grant funds, and these are funds that the Vine bus system relies on annually to help provide services to the public. While a clean energy package was looking like it was in the works, something that had been in the works for over a year, and it seemed very hopeful, Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia ultimately did not support the bill, and therefore, in combination with general Republican opposition, the bill is not likely to get out of the Senate and not moving forward. This goes against, I think, public opinion, which is interesting, about making sure that we have adequate investments to reduce climate change, but also the president's pledge to cut U.S. greenhouse gas emissions in half by 2030. On the state side, Governor Newsom and legislative leaders reached a deal on a $17 billion inflation relief package and transportation package that includes $4.2 billion for high-speed rail in the Central Valley segment and $10.8 billion for other transportation improvements. Significant trailer bills include AB and SB 180, which amends the current fiscal year's budget, and AB and SB 178 for fiscal year 2023 budget and other future years. And then AB and SB 198 outlines the local transportation infrastructure climate adaptation project program and includes funding for the Reconnecting Communities, Highways to Boulevards pilot program. The budget also includes $3.6 billion in supplemental transit and intercity rail capital program, otherwise known as the TIRCIP program. Roughly $2 billion is apportioned to Southern California, and the balance of the funds will be distributed to the remaining areas in the state. Of those funds, $300 million has been earmarked for high priority intercity rail corridors in coastal areas at risk for sea level rise. And another $150 million has been set aside for rail alignment planning, which will go to the state's MPOs. AB and SB 198 sets out a $2 billion goal for fiscal year 2024 and 2025 for the TIRCIP program and TIRCIP eligible projects. And this will be distributed on population, which in the MTC region means that we would receive about 19%. This is a lot lower than what we typically get. We would typically get 36%, but there is a lot more money on the table here. And it also allows for better planning when you know how much money you're going to get. So I think it's not perfect, but it's enough. And then SB 1049, which was the Dodd bill that the board supported, was signed into law and allocates $198 million for adaptation programs, which will be distributed through a new program called the Transportation Infrastructure Climate Adaptation Strategy. And then AB and SB 180 commits $350 million for grade separation projects to eliminate conflicts between road users and railroads. And the budget also includes $19.3 billion in general funds for projects and priorities that address climate change and that support the transition to zero emission vehicles. Over $500 million has been committed to investments to address drought and $30 million for wildfire and forest resilience. And the budget also includes over $3 billion for affordable housing. And there were a number of earmarks in this year's budget, including $20 million for the interim sea level rise projects on State Route 37 in Marin County. And I think the State Route 37 team anticipates that additional funds that haven't been allocated are also going to be coming our way for portions of the remaining part of the corridor and to start the ultimate project in planning and design. And then Napa County received $9 million for water infrastructure and wildfire related needs. It specifically references St. Helena and the city of Napa and the American Canyon Girls and Boys Club. And we're going to do a little bit more research to find out exactly what that is and how that's going to be distributed. And we'll share that with you when we find out. That concludes my report.
That is a very full report with a lot of dollar signs and decimals. So that's good stuff. Do we have any member questions for Kate on this item? Not seeing any. Vice Chair, no? Okay. Do we have any public comments on this? Not seeing any. Very good. Okay. Well, that concludes that item. Do we have any future agenda items that we wish to request? Not seeing any requests for future agenda items. Excellent. We can go on to number 10, the adjournment and approval of the next regular meeting, which will be, as stated earlier, we'll be skipping August, giving a break a little bit to the staff of NVTA. Little break. They're still working. I know. I'm looking at them. They're like, yeah, we're going to be working hard. But we will be meeting. Our next board meeting is September 21st at 1 o'clock. Hope to see more of our members here in person if you can, though it's lovely to see your face on Zoom. But if you can make it in person, that would be fantastic too. I hereby conclude this meeting at 2:14 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Good meeting.